We shall come to order, please. Thank you. Before we get started, I would just like everyone to take a couple of minutes or less to just think back on what we've done in 2 years. And you're going to hear more about that in highlight form, bullet form. But right now we have 80% of this community, the households, who've signed up for affordability, sustainability, security, and self-determination. That's a hell of a thing, and I think we ought to celebrate it. So let's give a big cheer out for that. Woo! All right. All right, let's get rolling here. Our agenda today. Our agenda today.
Our agenda today.
Our agenda today. We will. All right, agenda.
Yeah, well, that's a good idea.
We're getting the agenda up on the screen. Okay, here we go. First of all, we will have introductions and ground rules. We'll have some points on what you will learn today in today's meeting. We'll have the history of how we got here. We're going to focus a bit on the acquisition and financing proposal, the city's response to that, and then where we go from here. At the end of this, we will have a Q&A period. So hold your questions, please, until that point. Next slide, please. So as always, our ground rules are use the bathrooms as needed, as there will be no break. This is too short a presentation for us to break and then try to reconvene coming back. Please refrain from sidebar conversations. They're very distracting to everybody around you and including the speakers. Cell phones, turn them off. Got them? Please turn them off. On the Q&A period, please keep your questions brief and on topic. So I'll talk more about that when we get there, but it's very important that we get through people's questions. So really focus on what we're talking about today. Speak and listen respectfully. All right, what you will learn today, the park acquisition background, the acquisition proposal overview, city's response to that proposal, what PAC will do next, and very importantly, what we can do next. So, John, let me turn it over to you. Oh, introductions. Yes, I said it right here, didn't I? I said we'll have introductions, but we didn't. I'm Alan Gump. I'm on the policy committee of the PAC and MBC. John Hanson, our PAC board president, MBC board president, Brad Witherspoon, member at large, tech team over there, Peter Dyke, Ron Citron, John Hanson, David Gray, not here, and Ginger, and who's back there? Irma? And Irma Wheatley, yeah, thank you. And John Feld, I think I said, yeah. Okay, didn't. All right, thank you guys. Also, a big shout out to those tubers under Janie Climbs. Let's get started.
All right. Yeah, and one more to introduce is the lady that's kept us in the straight and narrow all along the way, Karen Tiedemann.
Also Randy too. Randy.
And not here, but online and watching right now is Randy Keller, who has he's with CCCD and has guided us pretty much every step of the way on developing a co-op and also in helping us with our proposal, and will be helping us with our response too. So what I want to do here with the brief history, just touch on this very quickly. Okay. What's that?
Not up on the screen.
Oh, well, I am. Where's the slideshow? It was there a minute ago. Yeah. Yeah, what the heck. But, you know, the PAC started, PAC is Park Acquisition Corporation. It started back in 1996 as the PAC acquisition or park acquisition committee. So that was the evolution of PAC, and we've been bubbling along, for 20-something years since then, and this is not our first rodeo on acquisition attempts. There've been two others, one right initially, and another one just was at 2008 to 10 is when the last time we made the approach. But initially, where we are right now kind of started in 2023 in May with Chris Blunk, the city engineer, and actually at this time he was the Public Works Director, came and gave a presentation here that was kind of jaw-dropping. We had been coming along every year, says our CIP, which is our infrastructure programs. Have been about $10 million, and every year got kicked down the road a bit further. So we didn't pay a lot of attention to it. All of a sudden, Chris Blunk says, "Oh, we're about somewhere between 40 and 70 million." And so anyway, where that came from, we're still kind of wondering. But anyway, shortly after that, a couple of months later in July, the the grand jury came out with a very damning report on Marin Valley. And there were just some blatant lies in there. Couldn't figure out how did that happen with a grand jury. They should have got accurate information from the city. Uh, the grand juries just don't do that. They don't work on willy-nilly. So, any rate, what happened there, still a mystery. But that kind of set things up for 5 days, this many days, less than a week after the grand jury report. Then this guy Mosier came along with an unsolicited acquisition uh, attempt with the city, offered $30 million. Unfortunately, that set us up, and everybody else, so the whole public now figures that, gee, you got to have more than $30 million to beat that, right? Well, unfortunately, there was a lot of information that the public at large do not have. At any rate, the next thing is that the MCC stopped the sale on that. We did that. Along with that, we probably saved the city's bacon. If they had gone through with it, they would have been sued big time by the state, possibly by us. I don't know. Could have been a class action, but it would have been a severe breach of the Surplus Lands Act. I'm not sure they were really on top of that at the time. They are now. So then in May of 24, that's just a little over a year ago, then the PAC and the city entered into an exclusive negotiating agreement, or ENA. And that's what's set up where we are right now. In the meantime, we formed the Marin Valley Cooperative, which is when we become self owned, then that can convert with a little bit of effort into a limited equity housing cooperative. Limited, which means we all have a little piece of a great big pie. Oops. At any rate, then in what is that, June
June.
25, we put in the proposal, an acquisition and financing proposal to the city, and we're going to talk about that today. And then just 4 days ago, on the 16th, we got a letter back from the city as a response to our proposal, and we'll be going through that as well. So what we did in the process of trying to figure out where do we go next, first of all, we figured out our objectives, which I'm really happy that that was our first step. What do we really want? And we came up with affordability, security, and sustainability. Affordability, y'all know what that means. Security, the weekend, I should say, a few days after the Mosier offer, 5 of our neighbors and friends died. Yeah. You can't tell me that's a coincidence. Yeah. So That's what security means. And that's what security, the lack of security means too. It's a big stressor on us all, too much for some of them. And then sustainability. Okay, if we want affordability and we want that security of knowing that we're going to be here tomorrow and be here next week and be here next year, sustainability says that we can be here forever until that other place freezes over.
Washington? Yeah.
Yeah. So then we developed the ROD committee, the Resident Ownership Development or Resident Ownership Discovery Committee at first, and that was Michelle back here. David Teta was on, Alan and Serena were on that, and I was there along with Mary quite frequently, Mary Curry. And from there, they did a search. What does resident ownership mean? What sort of programs, what sort of things are out there that represent resident ownership? That's where he came across the limited equity housing cooperative. Oops. So that brings us up then to the proposal. And the two questions that I had been receiving for some time about this proposal were one, what's it going to cost us? What are you offering the city? And number two, what's it going to cost me? With our proposal then, this is what we submitted. We submitted a $20 million offer to the city. Now, it took a lot of effort and creativity to come up with that $20 million, which is actually 19.92 something. We just rounded it up, sounds better as 20. Any rate, and the other thing is that the rents for tenants here and carrying charges for the members of the co-op, we're going to kind of combine that later and just call it all rents. It's a lot simpler to get through it. But we saw no increase in rents or carrying charges beyond the regular yearly CIP increase. That was about 2%, 2.7%. And on the average, that came to about $18 for the increase. So then we went on, and I'm going to let Brad take care of this because he's the one that did the masterful job on taking all of these data from our resident survey and put it into something very meaningful. Go ahead, Brad.
Okay. First off, I have to tell you that I don't like speaking in public, so I'm always a little nervous about doing this.
This is not public, it's all our friends.
But I see, I'm amongst friends, so it makes it easier. So, as John mentioned earlier, one of the things that we were tasked with when putting together the offer is keeping it affordable, right? And because the only source of revenue to pay off our offer is all of you. So the rents that you pay that go to the city, that's how we're going to fund this process. The first step that we did was we created an economic overview of you. And that was based on a survey that was done in 2023.
And finished in 24. Yeah.
Finished in 24. It went out. 261 households filled out that survey. Okay. And it was very enlightening for us. We use the guideline that you see above us. Comes from the state of California. This is the income bracket classification based on income, right? So, and the categories are acutely low, extremely low, very low, low, medium income, and moderate income. And since this is Marin, you will see that the median income for family and each column represents a higher number of person. It goes from 1, 2, 3, 4. So they use the median for 4 people, $186,000 a year. That is medium income. Okay. So let's look at the results of that survey. I'm quite proud of this chart, by the way. I did this one. Okay. Okay. So based on that chart, only 9% of the 261 households that responded meet the medium and moderate income. That's about 25 households. The vast majority, 91% of the people fall between low, very low, extremely low, and acutely low, with nearly a third being extremely low. So that tells us what our economic base is. So we can't go and come up with an offer that's going to, there are no deep pockets here. Let's just say that, okay? So we use this chart, and switch, now we're going to go to the next one. Remember, of the people that responded, 124 people who responded showed that they were spending at least 31% of their monthly income for housing costs. Okay, that includes rent, utilities, and insurance. Now, why is that 31% important? Because the federal guidelines state that anyone who's paying more than 30% of their monthly income for those three things, the higher you go, you get into what's called housing instability. And that's the leading cause of homelessness. Okay, so 124 households are already on the borderline
We're beneath.
or beneath.
Mhm.
Okay. So with that in mind, I'm going to go and talk about the proposal. Okay, it gets a little mathy here, so we tried to break it out into 3 steps. And as I go through this process, I want you to think of buying a home. Okay. First off is the purchase price. Remember, we talked about the $20 million. So let's talk about how we got there. There are 2 elements in the purchase price. Okay. The first one is the MVMCC cash accounts, and this is as of June 30th. Okay. This is the amount of money that the city has that has come from you as residents. This is in various accounts. And this money can only be used for the purposes of owning and operating the community. They can't use it to build a playground outside or to fix streets other places. It can only be used here. So part of our reasoning on that is, since the money could only be used for the community and we're taking over the community,
It came
we should
from
be
us.
able to use those funds.
Mhm.
Okay? So the first thing that we did was we talked about the CIP work. You know, for the past 3 years, we've been talking about getting a new roof. We've been talking about fixing the clubhouse. There's a lot of projects. And so we provided a detailed report that came to $2.6 million that we thought the city, we should claw back because we've already paid for these repairs. 2.6 million, no, hold on, excuse me. Right here, look at that, 2.6 million. Okay, so we deducted that right off the top. Okay, because we felt we would deserve that. There's all this work that has to be done. So that left 4.2 or $4.9 million. Okay, and we were going to apply that to our base purchase price of 15. So taking those 2 numbers together, that's how we got to the $20 million. Everyone got it? Okay, next slide. Now let's talk about the down payment side of it, okay? Remember that $4.9 million was left after we take out the capital improvements? Well, whenever you buy a home, there are costs associated with it, right? So there are going to be costs associated with transferring the property from the city to us. And since none of us have deep pockets, we're going to have to make use of that money, but we were going to pay it back to the city. So there are 3 things it was going to be used for. One is to pay off the balance on the loan. Okay, the city, we estimate by, or we know that by the end, when we want to take over to Park in January 1st, that there will be a balance still on the loan of 1.265 million. So normally the city would have to pay that. We graciously said, you know, if you use that money to pay off that loan, we're going to pay it back to you. Okay. The second thing is closing costs. In any transaction, when you buy a house, if you buy a house for $1 million, it's not just $1 million, right? You've got legal fees, you've got expense, so all of those things, and all of these things, by the way, were provided in detail in the report. That page number, you can go to the page number in the proposal, and you will see that we detailed every item of that money. So the closing costs we estimated to be about $930,000. But we were going to take the money from that 7 million, right? But we're going to pay it back. Okay. The other thing that's needed is working capital. Okay. Working capital, when you start a business, you need funds because day one, when we own the property, we have bills to pay, we have things to do, so we need money. So we estimated, we costed out 1.5 months worth of expenses, which we calculated to be about 307,000. Okay, so when you deduct all of that out of that 4.9 million, that leaves 2.4 million. That 2.4 million we were going to apply as a down payment to the 20 that we're offering. So what's left and owed to the city is 17.5. Got it? Everyone's clear? Okay. I know this is kind of complicated, so we have to break this down. So the last part of the plan has to do with how we were going to pay it off. So we said that we owe the city 17.5 million. Okay. That comes up to the 15 million, that was the base, plus those monies that we borrowed, right? And we're going to pay it back. So that comes to 17.5 million. We were going to pay that off in 35 years, on average about $500,000 a year, or $41,666 a month. Okay. What's important about this? We're not asking the city to loan us $17,500,000. You will also note that in this whole process, 0 public tax dollars were used. This is all being funded by money that we as residents have paid into. That was the only funds that we were looking to use. Okay? You'll notice that there's no interest here. Okay? The reason for that is if we were to borrow, we actually, in our process that we were going through, we didn't just arrive at this $20 million, right, that we came up with. I'd like to give credit to David and to Greg and to John, myself, and Steve. We spent months and months pawing over information. I created models that we can compare pricing, okay? The thing about it is the only available resource to finance this through a bank would have been at 7%. Okay, so remember we said at this price, with no interest, and this is called a direct sale, an installment plan, right? With no interest, that's what our payment would be, $500,000 a year. Okay, at 7% interest, our annual payment would have been $1.6 million. So what does that tell you? We can't offer them $20 million and pay a bank the interest. Okay? So with that in mind, we came up with this idea because our goal again was what? To keep it affordable. That was our number one goal. So is everyone clear on how we got here? This is a very complex offer, but this is as simple as we can make it to help you understand. So now let's talk about what this means to you. And John alluded to this earlier, okay? So the number that's highlighted in the circles there, we're going to focus on those 3 numbers right now. $677 is the average rent in the community. Some pay higher, some pay lower. But we use that number to calculate revenue, okay? Because we have, one of the things that was important doing this offer is we couldn't just say, okay, here's the information. For sustainability, we had to project out 10 years, which means on the numbers that you see on the right-hand side, that is what we were estimating the average rents would be in the first 10 years. Okay? What that means for you is our first year, or the year of acquisition, we were estimating about an $18 increase for everyone. Okay? That's in line, by the way, with what the city would have charged if we stayed with the city. Okay? And we use that 2.7%. That is the CPI that the city's been using to adjust our rents each year, and that's minimal. So we wanted to keep on that track, right? We didn't want to jump from 2.5 to a higher number. Our goal was always keep it affordable for you. Okay. With that in mind, again, as I said, we're able to project out the rents for 10 years. And with this information, we were able to calculate how much income we would generate in those 10 years. Keeping these rents low, okay, we would generate almost $48 million. Okay, why is that number important? Because that allows us to do a couple of objectives. One is to pay off the money to the city at $500,000. Two, to continue to operate the MVCC community to operate at a safe level. We are actually worked on a budget. We have a 10-year budget, okay, down to the dollar. We also budgeted for some other things, like we wanted to increase fire maintenance and fire abatement and tree maintenance. So we had some things in there. So this $48 million that we talked about generating would allow us to operate the park safely. It also was enough to fund the 10 years of CIP, or capital improvements. And some of that included even replacing the floor in the banquet hall here. So we could do all of that with minimum increases. The third thing that was really important for sustainability is at the end of that 10-year period, we would have a little over $5 million in reserves. Okay. Now the city had 7.5 after how many years? We would have $5.1 million to start the next 10 years and begin the next phase of budgeting. Okay. So that's what this means to you. And this is what we presented to the city. Okay. This is an overview. So John and I worked to put together this binder, which we walked down to City Hall and gave to the city manager. And she was quite impressed, by the way. She's very impressed. Her first question to us, is it affordable? Is this thing, is our plan based on affordability? And as you know, the answer is yes. It's affordable. Our number one goal was to keep every resident here. We wanted to provide a safe environment. Okay. So with that in mind, we left that thinking, okay, great, yeah, we nailed it. When the city council was going to address this, Carol Joy, myself, and John went and spoke before them and told them that we thought this was a win-win situation. In the ENA, that's the language that they use, we talked about it should be a win for the city and a win for us. The city gets $20 million after investing zero public tax dollars. They would get $20 million. We would continue to operate and fund the park. We are asking for no public funds. Okay. So then we get the response from the city, and I'm going to let John take it over from there.
Well, thanks, Brad. Well, thanks for leaving me with all the good news. So what you see on the screen is a letter that we got from the city. It was addressed to me as a PAC president, and it was from Bill Rose, who is the assistant city manager, and part of his job description is liaison with Marin Valley. So over there on the up on the
Left.
on that side. Yeah, you'll see where the indent is. There's 3 items there, and that's what's on the next slide here. And they're saying that okay, what we need, we reject your offer. What we need is a minimum purchase price of $26 million, which, oh, by the way, that does happen to correspond with the appraisal that they did that came to 26 million, not the one that we did. We did the appraisal too. Of course, we paid for both of them. But anyway, our appraisal was 21.3 million. They never mentioned that. They want the 26 million. And by the way, you shall not use any or rely on any form of city financing. That means, okay, that's $7.5 million. That's ours. That's not yours. And the $500,000 a year for, no, we want cash on the barrel. So anyway, that's kind of what we got from them. And then right at the very bottom there, behind what I'm saying, it says there are additional items. Should you choose to accept the above 2 bullet points, then there are additional items we want to talk to you about. What those are, I don't know. And you'll notice that there's a little bit of space between those lines. Who knows what is in there? So we go on then to what are we going to do about this? What are our options? We've only had a few days to think about this and to roll the sweat away and the tears and be able to focus on, okay, what can we do? And we came up with 2 possibilities here, really. And both of those can really, they can mean quite a few things. But staying with the city ownership. And I see status quo in a question mark there because to me, status quo with the city, that ship sailed with their letter. Yeah, that's gone. There is no status quo with the city. Anything that we do with the city now is going to be on all brand new terms. Okay? So what that all means at this point, I really don't know. We need to spend a lot of time in thinking about that. But I think in the first thing that we need to is on the option number 2, is that we need to put together a counter proposal that addresses the city's request.
Yep. Okay. It's me again.
Take her away,
Okay.
Brian.
So we're going to discuss these 2 options. Okay. These are the 2 obvious options. It's not to say we're going to stop exploring other options, but these are the 2 ones that we want to address right now. Let's talk about staying with the city. Okay. As John mentioned, is it really status quo? The answer is probably no. Okay. If we decide to stay with the city still could sell us.
Yep.
That will always be hanging over our heads. And if you've listened to the news, you know what's going on in other mobile home or manufactured home communities. They're being sold. Look around you. Look at this beautiful place that we live in. Imagine what a developer could do if he came in here and bought this up. And it's not to keep all of us here. Okay? So that's one. So we have to, if we decide to stay with the city and not pursue it, anything, that's it, we still have the risk of being sold. The other thing is we could try to negotiate a long-term lease with the city. But again, anything that we negotiate, that would take quite a bit of time. And the city would have to willing to do that. So we would have to look into the options. What does that mean? Does that mean is this a lease to own? Is this, so we would have to work out those details. So those are the options that we're just talking about with the first one. Because the city offered to talks about $26 million, David and I worked and we did the math. Okay, so if we were to take their accept their $26 million offer and not use any of the $7 million, okay, with the funding that we have available to us, this means we'd have to finance this, okay? The rents would have to increase $375. I want you to keep that number in your head because that's what it would cost for us to operate the park. That's a month. That's monthly income, not a yearly income. It's $375 a month. That averages out to a little about $4,500 a year that we all would have to pay. Okay. We also, just like we projected out the 10 years, we projected it out to 5 years. And that's what the increases would be for each household if we kept at the 2.7%. Okay. But the problem we have with this, and we still have to work this out and work out some details. However, remember we talked about having $5 million at the end of that 10 years? This bites into that, which means we end the 10-year period with little to no money, and we've got a whole bunch of CIP work that needs to be done. So as John mentioned, we're going to start work right away on putting together some numbers. And our goal is to present that to you. Let's go to the next slide to talk about where do we go from here? Okay. Let's talk about what the PAC's going to do, the PAC board and the finance committee. Well, John and I are going to meet with Bill Rose, who's the city attorney, city manager, assistant city manager, and ask him about those additional conditions that they mentioned. Like, what are they? How can we put together an offer? We don't know what that is. 2, we're going to have a little appraisal discussion, right? Because, we're going to start, the city came in at 26 million, we came in at 21. So we want to do a little comparison on that and see if we can work out something. We also need classification because the letter stated that we had to respond in 30 days. Does that mean we have to have a proposal together in 30 days? What do we need to do? Our goal is to try to present the next proposal as quickly as possible. Okay, and with that proposal, we are going to rely on you to give us information. We need to hear from you. Okay. We're also going to do that with greater transparency. And what that means is this. One of the most, claim that I've heard most people talk about in the original process was we had to do things behind doors. We didn't tell you how much we were going to offer. We didn't do any of this. So we were under the ENA, which was a closed door negotiations with the city. And we were going to keep it as that. Well, the city's response was not only when they responded was they were going to make this public. So now everyone knows what our proposal is. You know. So now, since we're no longer under that clause where we are negotiating in, behind closed doors, as we get communications, we're going to let you know. Okay, that's what the transparency comes in. The next step is what we need from you. Okay, this is the call to action. Some of you, I can tell, I know talking to David, he said when he read the response, he was mad as hell. And I'm sure a lot of you feel the same way. You know, how can you say you want it to be affordable, but you're asking us to pay $375 a month more? And you notice what was not in their response? There was nothing to address affordable housing or sustainable. Their number one goal was, we want more money. So what we have to do, they see this as a commodity. Okay. We need you to put a face on that. So we need you to write letters to not only to the city council, but to our county managers, our state representatives, and tell them your story. We're not going to give you a form letter to fill out. You need to tell your story, whatever you feel comfortable sharing, right? How much is your monthly income? How much would that $375 a month impact you? Only you can tell your story. So we need you to do that, and that can start right away. We're going to provide you with a list of the contact information for everyone. And we're also going to give you a few talking points, because we also want you think about that $7.5 million that we have paid in, that we feel we should be able to use. And the city says, no, that's our money. That's what they said. That's what they're telling you. So we need you to be our voices while we put together this proposal. We also need to organize, city council meetings, depending on how much time we have. Get a group together, go to the city council, and stand up. We need to fight just like we did last time. Okay? The last part of it is we're going to, after we put the follow-up counter proposal together, we're going to have another meeting back here. We're going to present that information to you. We're going to give you a little time to think about it, but we want you to vote. My idea is to have a piece of paper where we manually vote and say that we're going to, we approve of the offer. And when we present that offer to the city, we're going to take every single signed copy and put it down on their desk and say, we have the backing of the community. This is what we have agreed to do.
Karen, could you come forward, please, and have a seat at the table? Thank you. So you all know, or at least have heard of, Karen Tiedemann, a fabulous attorney from Goldfarb Lippman. We also have Randy Keller from CCCD online, and he can field questions as well. So to start the Q&A, we'd like you to come forward and use the mic. We would like you to please focus on the topics that we have covered. One question only, please, so we can get through everyone's question. And please, I know, as Brad said, there's probably some blood boiling a little bit here. Let's let that go for now and really just focus on content, okay? There'll be plenty of time to vent a little bit later on. So, questions. We're going to take questions in the room, then questions on Zoom, and we might, depending on how many people in the room ask questions, we might take a break between here and go to Zoom, come back here, finish up. So right now there are only 4 people with questions. So Ellen Jane, carry on.
Son? Yeah, thank you. Ellen Jane Schultz. I've been here 22 years, and I've followed the process pretty closely from when we first started being interested. My burning question is, isn't it true that the city of Novato has paid squat, that we have paid everything? And at some point in negotiations, there was some kind of error where only the city of Novato's name got put on the title. But we have paid every nickel, and why aren't we on the title? I mean, that's in the past, so we can't fix that. We can't go back and correct that. But my understanding is they don't pay squat, and we have paid everything.
Ellen Jane, let me ask you what your question is regarding the content that we've presented. You make good points, but this is history. Let's focus on what we presented today.
Okay, well, Why should we pay them anything?
Okay, good, all right, great question. Who wants to handle that question?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a question. Let's answer that question.
Yeah, I can answer that question. The answer is that they have what's called a bully pulpit, which means that that's where they've been all along. How every time that we have tried to do anything with the city, they say, we'll do what we want because we own you.
I would like to add something to that as
Sure,
well.
go ahead.
When I first got on the committee and Mary was a board member, Mary and I had this conversation. And Mary actually, her original idea was to tell the city, we'll pay off the loan and then we take over. But we
Mhm.
realized that that was a non-starter. Okay, so we did, that was in our thoughts. That was one of the processes that we went through to arrive at where we landed at the 20 million.
Thank you. Janine.
Janine Bradley, 8 Sunrise Drive. It's a question on the ENA. It's been violated by the city. What repercussions are they for violating it? This was all supposed to be confidential. I was surprised when we got the letter that they said we're putting this out to public and so should you. Without a prior agreement by our board, I take it.
Karen? Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon. First of all, it's really nice to see you all. The ENA actually doesn't say it has to be confidential. So there is nothing in there, unfortunately. We believed that that's how the council wanted to keep the negotiations, which is why the proposal was not made public until now. Yeah,
Confidential.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Kamala Allen. I have a question regarding the grants. Did we apply for any grants and what's the status on those?
Kind of outside the scope of what we're talking about here. Maybe when we have our next meeting and we've determined potential sources of income, that'd be a good time to bring that up.
I would like to
Go
just a little bit. So part of this, one of the things that we talked about during this whole process, again, we just didn't pull up $20 million. We looked at various options. And one of the options, everyone had heard about the price grant, right? The money would come. So the problem was we were still working on it, but we could not get confirmation of whether and how much it was, what the terms were, and we had a deadline. So we had to push that aside for the time being and focus on what we knew we could offer. So when we go back to thinking about a proposal, we'll be entertaining that idea as well because the new things have opened up. So we are exploring all options available to help us to fund our second offer because it has to be through a bank, but also what we can do to bring get money in the door to help us with the pricing.
Yeah, and I think I'd like to add to that, yeah, we certainly did consider the price grant at one time. However, when we applied for the price grant, we were under a Democratic administration. When the price grant became available, we are no longer under that administration. They have different rules and they operate at a whole different tempo. And so part of the problem was that the money just wasn't available in time to get our proposal in when we needed to get it in. And whether it's available now, I don't know. We have to wait and see. We're on a new track. We have numerous possibilities for resources, and we just have to, to spin the wheel again and see what we can come up with.
Randy, please interject at any time
Yes.
if you want to add to anything. Otherwise, we'll carry on. Judy?
Judy Lane, 30 Marin Valley. My question was kind of for Randy, actually, because I wanted to see if there was any input he had. Obviously, we can't resubmit the same proposal we submitted, so we have to figure some other things out. My personal priority would be to figure something out that we could propose, because my goal would be to have us own the park, not to continue with the city. So
What's
if
the
there's
question,
if
Judy?
there's anything that could be added other than we're looking into it and we'll talk about it again, that would be great. Thanks.
Yeah. Again,
Thank you.
please stay tuned. I think we'll have, these guys will have more to say coming up as they have to hash through proposals and ideas and numbers and basically do essentially what they've done over the last 6 months, but do it on an accelerated basis. So come up
And
with
this is Randy.
something.
We will be working on a counter proposal
Right.
with everything in mind, from space rents to affordability and, the low income, everything. And present that back to you guys as soon as we can.
Don't forget, we've only had 4 days to process this and to come up with a plan. So our first point was to try to figure out what the individual cost would be at 26 million, since that's what the city wanted. So after we finish this meeting, we have other meetings lined up to start working on responding to the city. Our number one goal would be to try to be self-owned. That's where we want to land.
Oh, self-owned, okay.
Okay, next, please.
Yes, Adele Waller, 115 Sunrise Lane. Are we just gonna roll over about the $7 million that they have that's ours? I thought we had years' worth of documentation of what we've paid in, and that we've even been able to show that the city manager at the time that the grand jury met lied either through, ignorance, since they hadn't done an audit in God knows how long.
Sorry, let's let the panel here answer your question about, are we just going to roll over?
Well,
The answer,
The answer is no.
Do we have any legal resource? That $7 million covers the difference.
Right. Let's let them
between-
answer, please.
Yeah.
Let's let them respond. Thank you.
you want to talk about?
Well, I don't know that it's really a legal question, but I think it's a very important point to be made. That $7 million came from you.
Right.
It didn't come from the city's general fund. And it was collected in order to continue to operate and improve the park by making the capital improvements that have been discussed. So it should stay with the park.
So the
So-
direct answer to the question is, we're not just going to roll over and forget about it. We're going to incorporate that into our proposal. We're just going to see where we land and how we can, respond to the cities that we don't use that money. We think of that as negotiating.
The
Joe?
other thing, this is Randy again, very important, your board is asking for your help to petition and campaign the city, and this is exactly what we need. Your voices to say, hey, city, this isn't right about the $7 million. They need to hear from you on that one. That's the strongest thing we have.
Joan?
Yes, I'm Joan Leopold, 166 Marin Valley Drive. Just going to be kind of devil's advocate, throwing this out as a thought. We would like to own it ourselves, but as a different possibility, what if we had a shared ownership with the city with like 60-40 or even 51-49, and we pay half of what's expected, and it would give them income for life and it keep us safe. Just as a
Well, thanks, Joan. We can throw that in the hopper. That's certainly an idea, go into a partnership. Although you have to really be careful about who you go to bed with.
yes.
There are STDs out there.
Yes.
Next, please.
Yeah, Martina Kirkridge, 13 Marine View Drive. And thank you for saying that we want to provide a safe environment. And thank you for providing another property condition report after the 2021. Where can we find it? That is the question. And then also, if only 9% of us have a little deeper pockets, then I wonder, I'm just throwing this out because there are truly generous people here, but there are also sometimes generous people who don't want to be identified. So the question is, not deep pockets, I understand, but what I do not know is where are the suits in the closet, and would the suits in the closet be able and open to donate a significant high amount that would help us?
Thank you, Martina. I think the answer to that question is that we'll let the suits answer.
I'm not a suit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jan.
Jan Thomas, 15 Fallen Leaf. And first of all, I want to say thanks to all of you who worked on this proposal. It was really, really impressive. And even though it was rejected, I've not lost hope. In negotiations, the first offer is rarely or ever accepted. I mean, it's a process. It's going to take a while. And in the meantime, I'm going to continue to dream the dream. But I read the entire 100. I printed it out. I read it. I highlighted it. And I wrote something up because y'all know that I'm not good at impromptu speaking. And now a lot of it is a moot point after your presentation. So it's kind of more a preview of my letter to the legislators. And at the end, there really is a question for you. So if you'll bear with me, I'll read what I wrote.
If you don't mind, just cut straight to the question so we can get through everybody.
Well, I'm just saying, I think, given my age, I may have 15 more years here. And so I did my own financial projections. And if we up our offer at 22 million, I'm going to cap out in, I think, 10 years at, I don't know, I wrote it down. At 20 million, I can last 10 years before I have to ask for
Jan,
assistance.
I'm so sorry, but I need a question from you. So these
The question is, there's 91% of us here who qualify as low income, very low, extremely low, low. So if I'm going to cap out in 5 years or 10 years, or at 26 million, I'm capped out from the get-go. And everybody asks for a payment plan for assistance. And I don't know exactly how that's done, but I think it's probably you put a lien on my home. I'm just wondering if the influx of new residents who would be charged the highest carrying charge would balance and offset the amount of money you wouldn't be getting from the people that are asking for assistance, and you won't get the money until they die and their houses sell.
Okay.
Let's let Brad respond.
Okay.
Thank you.
Part of the program that we had in place is that one reason we're able to keep the prices so low is that there would be turnover. And when new people came and became members, they would actually start at a higher level and pay more, right?
Right.
So that's how we got
They
to keeping
come in
money.
at the high
Right.
carrying.
However, there's no guarantee. That's a projection.
Mm-hmm.
We can't really rely on that totally in order to fund that. It's not to say it's out of the question. We're going to have to look at it again. But yes, we hear what you're saying, that it's a big stretch to do it. And we're going to, the offer we make to the city will only be something that the residents approve,
Yeah.
that the majority of the residents approve. And our goal is still to keep it affordable.
Okay.
So thank
yeah.
you.
Well, no, I really appreciate
Thank
the
you.
fact that you're trying to keep it affordable, but I don't want us to go belly up
thank
either.
you.
Right. Thank you.
Let me stop here. Do we have questions on Zoom?
Yes, we have.
Let's pick up some questions on Zoom, just in fairness to those good folks there. Hang on, David. We're going to go to Zoom right now.
Okay, so
No question? Okay. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, let's start with Ogre. Ogre P. Ogre P. Go ahead with your question, Ogre P.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Masood. Ogre is my nickname that my wife has picked for me.
Okay.
Oh, Masad.
Sorry. I have a I have a question regarding the last paragraph of the city's letter, they gently remind us that the negotiation agreement ends December 31st of this year. Judging from their response and our resources and so on and so forth, it probably is going to take quite a bit of time to go back and forth to get this, acceptable to both parties. I remember early on, it took them a long time to, sign off on the exclusive negotiation agreement. I don't know if anybody else remembers. There were months that they were just sort of dragging their feet beyond the due dates. Is there any possibility to be able to extend that December 31st date? Because that's only 5.5 months away.
Yeah, so the ENA does provide that the parties can mutually extend the term for 2 additional 6-month periods. So if we're close to reaching an agreement, we would expect them to extend it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next on Zoom, please.
Okay, Richard Wilkerson.
Yes, thank you. My video is frozen by you guys, but I think you can hear me.
Yep.
Yes, I'm just curious who's on our side, and will we ever know who signed off on this response letter to us, and which of our representatives are on our side, and which ones do we still need to negotiate with?
Richard, I don't think we will ever really know. We might be able to do that with long interviews and read between the lines from what they say, but it's unlikely. They're politicians. What we do know is that there's 5 members on the board. We need 3.
Thank you. Next. On Zoom, next, please.
Okay, next is David Gray.
All righty, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Great. So first of all, thank you to the board and to Randy and to our wonderful legal counsel. You guys have been awesome. My question is, I believe that there is an election coming up that Mark Milberg is participating in. And I'm just thinking that, that might be a potential leverage point. My concern is that it appears that the city, in their response, does not appear to be negotiating in an upfront manner. They are withholding the terms that they want us to agree to. So that just seems like a dirty pool, for lack of
David, I'm sorry, David, let me interrupt and see if you have a question. We all agree there, but
okay.
yeah.
I guess there's no point at this point in talking about what we're going to do legally. So I don't have a question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, David. Okay, the last question we have for the moment on Zoom is Peggy Hill.
Peggy Hill, 106 Sunrise Lane, and I'm wondering if there'll be a new tax assessment for property taxes and how that will work. Thank you.
Comes from the county.
New tax assessment for yes, there will be. We don't know what that's going to be. We go to the tax assessor's office and they say, well, tell me when you have it squared away, who owns what, when and how, and we'll tell you what your tax assessment is. So, there's still a lot of other possibilities, that it depends on how the sale goes. And actually, here I am mouthing off here. Karen's the one that should be talking about this. Go ahead.
Yeah, so a couple of things. I mean, there is in the projections, property taxes are included. Currently, you all pay what's called a payment in lieu to the city because the city owns the property. There isn't a property tax assessed, but that was part of the original transaction. So there's an annual payment to the city that is essentially their portion of what the property taxes would be. There is included in the budget property taxes as best it could be estimated, but there are also provisions under state law where there may be a possibility that we continue with no assessment. So we need to continue to explore that.
Thank you. All right. No further Zoom?
No
David.
further Zoom
Okay,
right
David.
now.
Just to something said. Chose not to go that route because at 7%, it was not viable or sustainable to present a budget that would keep us financially sound.
Well, that's true, David, but we were talking about the grant at that time.
It was, but that was sure.
Right.
Thank you. Janet.
Hi, Janet, 135 Panorama Drive. I'm just wondering, is there any possibility that we could get a new appraisal of the park that was from the same entity for both the city and us? So we could come to a figure that would be somewhere in between 26 and 21. So that's my question.
Karen, can you answer that?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things we can talk to the city about. Often when you have two appraisals and they differ,
Yep.
there's different options that you can look at. One is to bring in a third appraiser and have
Right.
that third appraiser evaluate both of the appraisals and either determine that one is closer than the other or pick something in the middle. Or, there's ways of like, then you have another appraiser come in, and if they're more than 15% off, then you sit down. Like, you can bring in multiple appraisers. The appraisals differ because they differ on some basic fundamental assumptions. And so that is something we need to talk to the city about because they used very aggressive assumptions.
Do you want to say something about the
Um,
assumptions?
Well, part of it is they used an assumption that there would be no affordability restrictions in the park, which we will have to have because of state law requirements. But then they also used a more aggressive, what's called a cap rate, which is essentially the rate at which you take the income and you multiply it with to figure out how soon you have to earn out what you paid for the park. And so the higher cap rate gives you a higher purchase price. The appraiser the PAC hired used a lower cap rate, and there are reasons to do that. There's different theories of cap rates. So it just is one of those things that it makes a very big difference. And then there's also what comparables you use. And the comparables differed pretty significantly. So
Thanks.
And one other thing, that the appraisers, the one that the city used is a local appraiser here in Marin. Or routinely does appraisals for the city. The appraiser that we chose does nothing but mobile homes and has done 7,000 of them throughout the West. So go figure.
Thank you.
Good.
Aaron Mortensen, 17 Fallen Leaf. My question is this. I find the figure that they're saying they want to come out to about 31 million, which is 1 million more than Moser offered. Now, if the city is only interested in money, why can't Moser just wait for us to pay all the money on the assessments and the appraisals and then come in with a higher offer by 32 million or 35? So we're going to get knocked out of the ballpark by Moser if we don't have something else to help us out here. So my question is, do we have any protection from doing all this work and then just not being priced out by Moser? What have we got to counter that?
We do have a few tools. One is the city is subject to the Surplus Land Act. They can't just sell the park directly to anybody they want without going through a process. It is a process. It doesn't require that they sell the park to a particular group or entity, but they have to first initially offer, if they wanted to sell the park, they have to declare it surplus. They then have to offer it initially to people who are going to retain it as housing and affordable housing. And then they have to negotiate in good faith with those entities. It's only then, after they went through that process, which can take about 6 to 8 months, that they could then sell it to whoever they wanted. So it's not a perfect solution, but it does slow down the process. It does also put it more in the public eye. And they do have to get approvals from the State Department of Housing and Community Development once they start that process. So there will be some eyes on them if they start the surplus land process.
But is it not the case that if we can shoot ourselves in the foot if we try to shoot down the surplus lands affecting Moser's offer?
I'm not sure I understand.
Are we shooting ourselves if we try to shoot down Moser's proposal through the Surplus Lands Act? Are we not shooting ourselves in the foot too in terms of if we get them to say no to Moser, that then goes back on us, that they refuse us as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a possibility, but then it's not sold to Mosier. I mean, if the park is sold to somebody for $31 million, there are going to have to be rent increases or a different use of this property. The property can't sustain that level of debt. So, you know, the backlash may be the city would continue to hold the park if Mosier didn't buy it or somebody else didn't buy it. But, you know, a $31 million offer, neither appraisal supports that.
Right.
So, and given that there's mobile home rent control, there's not a way to really generate enough revenue to support that.
Thank you. Gary?
Hi, I'm Gary Appleman, 35 Scenic. I have a quick question. So thank you for the really clear presentation. It was marvelous. Way I understand, if we pay 26 million, actually it's 33.5 because they're going to keep 7 million that we have, right?
That's right.
So my question is, I know this sounds like a cold-hearted proposition, but when you show the income distribution, I assume most of those people are the older residents. And people who coming in are paying much more, have much more income. So is it possible to do a deal where residents who have more money actually lend money to the park? And we take a lien on those houses that we're supplementing and like tie it to, say, a T-bill. And when those people pass away, house gets sold, the people who lend get paid back. Something you might want to.
Again, these guys are still working up the response, and all of this is in the hopper for consideration. But
Yeah, thanks,
good
Gary.
point. Thank you. Marty?
Hi, my name's Marty Gelman. Thank you so much for representing us. Without you, we could be floating around. My question has to do with the letter writing. I'm very good at writing letters. Is the gist of the letter to be why we actually moved in here?
But you can, you're going to get an email sent out in constant contact that will have more specific instructions along with addresses. So I'd suggest that you review that, and then if you have questions, come back to these guys. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Gail Atkinson, 3 Meadowview Drive. I'd like to echo all the thanks that other people have expressed for the great job you've done for us. I would like to know if a mediator would be an option with regards to the issue of affordability, the appraisal issue, and whether we should bring suit, because they essentially seized $7 million that belongs to us. can we have a legal action against the city for appropriating our funds? Thank you.
I'll give that some thought.
Meg.
Hi, Meg Jordan on Marin Valley Drive, 29. And again, like everybody else, immense thanks for the clarity and the brilliance of this proposal. Frankly, I'm not at all surprised that the city of Novato does not want to finance it. What I'm asking is a question for Randy, and that is, you know, I left all of our previous meetings with the idea that ROC/CCD was going to help us find funding. And so I'm still in a place of scratching my head, said, Randy, could you just help us leave with some optimism in our hearts and give us one idea of what kind of entity you or ROC/CCD used to find funding for some of the parks you helped purchase? Thanks.
Yes, and we have not abandoned you. We are currently working on performas using rock capital funding at a couple of different interest rates, along with possible grant funds to make some type of good counteroffer to the city. So we are actively working with your board on this.
Thank you. Tom, I'm going to ask you to come forward because Martine and Jan, you have already asked a question. There's someone behind you who's not. So Tom, if you would come forward, and we'll pick up everybody who's not asked a question, and then we'll come back. And there are 3 on Zoom that we'll pick up right when we finish. Tom and Frank, yes. Thank you, please. Yeah, good. All right. Thank you, Tom.
Sure, thank you. Like to make my questions as
Come forward,
concise as-
please.
Like to make my questions as concise as possible.
One question, please, Tom. Sorry. Just one. We got to get through these questions. If there's time for a second, you can.
I'll make these questions
Please.
shorter than anybody's been here.
Okay.
The confidential information that the city will release about the real estate negotiations, not a part of the ENA, but isn't that controlled by the Brown Act? And therefore, are they not in breach of the Brown Act? And if we release information, are we not in breach of the Brown Act? Second question.
Please.
In our years of negotiation with the city, have we determined that our objectives and their objectives are the same regarding the park? Are our objectives of affordability, security, and sustainability shared objectives by the park or by the city? And if so, since we are going to tell our story, perhaps the city has a story to tell us. And
Thank you, Tom. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to stop you there. Thank you very much.
So can we get
Let's get it.
the
Let's get a
city to
response
tell
on-
their story?
Thank you. And then Janie will bring you up, please, behind Frank.
Anybody want to answer those?
Yeah, you want
Yes.
the answers? So the Brown Act allows public agencies to keep certain information confidential and have their meetings in closed session. It doesn't require it. So at any time, they could release documents. So there's the Brown Act and there's the Public Records Act. They can release any documents they want other than personal identifying information in certain circumstances. Similarly, they could hold real estate negotiations in their council meetings if they wanted to, but the Brown Act gives them the ability not to do that if that's what they choose. So it's not a violation.
Thank you, Frank. We have some questions on Zoom, but we'll pick up Frank and Janie, and then we'll go to Zoom.
Okay, this is so quick.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask Alan a question. Are you aware that an assessor just moved in on View Ridge Drive? She retired about a month ago. She moved into Nancy's house on View Ridge Drive. That's
Thank
all I
you.
wanted to say.
Janie.
Janie Climbs, my question is, on the addresses that were going to be given, does it include the media? Can we approach the media with our issues?
I think I'll let you guys respond, but I think, Mary Curry has done such a great job on that. She's not here in the park now, dealing with a family issue. When she comes back, I would defer to her on that. But in the meantime, you're going to get some information about your council members, your supervisor, and our state representatives. That's a good place to start. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I got it.
Well, yeah, and to answer your question, Janie, yes, we will be responding to
Yeah, so
the-
Martine, I'm going to ask you to step back. We're going to pick up Edgar's question, and then we're going to go to Zoom.
I know there's that $7 million, and I'm sure it's collecting interest. I know they haven't done anything with the 7 million, but what have they done with the interest? Does it roll back into the 7 million account? Or do they use it for themselves?
Yeah.
The accounting we get from the city is way too opaque just to know about that. It's the amount of money in the reserves has bounced back and forth a lot over the years.
Right.
And the amount of interest that has come from that has likewise bounced back and forth. There doesn't seem to be any relationship.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a very hard question to answer, and especially if we ask the bully pulpit.
Right.
And if you set up a GoFundMe page, maybe we could all start doing that for our birthdays.
Thank you. We'll talk about that. Let's pick up the questions on Zoom, and then we'll finish out here.
I have
Okay,
just
great. First,
Hold on, Maggie. Sorry.
one word, not assessor, appraiser.
Thank you.
Pretty appraiser.
okay. Thank you, Maggie.
Zoom.
Okay, on Zoom, let's ask Laura Cooper to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello?
Yes, hi, Laura.
Yes, hi. My name is Laura. I just moved in last week. I'm at 186 Marin Valley where Alice Burbage was. I am absolutely terrified. I am a new resident, a self-supporter. I am putting all my nest egg into this, and this is not good news. My question, and I think it may have been touched on, is there anything in negotiations approaching the city regarding being below market rate, affordable? There are so many things that are popping up that are affordable, quote, affordable housing. And this is already established, and I'm just wondering if there's an angle there that to help preserve our situation.
Thank you.
There may be angles there, but the city seems to come up with more angles than we do on how to avoid that. So, you know, it doesn't mean that we're not going to work with that, but we're going to work with all the information that we have available, and that's part of it.
Next question on Zoom.
Next question on Zoom is Polly St. John. Go ahead, Polly. Polly St. John Hughes, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
There you go.
Okay, thank you. This is more directed towards the letters we're going to be sending out. Yeah, because the one thing I hear all the time through everything we're talking about today is that I agree with Tom. Do we have the same goals as the city regarding this property and the people that live here? Because the way that they treat us sometimes is the exact opposite of yeah, I mean, just, you know, so I think that the theme letters that we're sending out really need to talk about, and could we address that as one of the themes, is the fact that they don't really think about us.
Respect.
Yeah, it's just like
Molly, let me stop you. So I think your question is, do we know the city's objective?
yeah, in
thank
relation to our objective,
Yeah, right.
because
And
if
it's
those
good-
don't come into alignment, we're never going to get a good negotiation with them.
So when we talked about, if you look at the ENA, we stated what our objectives were there. Those three goals that John shared at the very beginning. We talked about affordability, sustainability. That was our focus. We went into these negotiations, writing this proposal, thinking that they shared those.
Yeah.
Okay. That's why we were a little taken back by their response, was they want more money. So those two things don't equate, right? So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to find out, you know, how strongly they feel about keeping this place affordable.
Yeah.
That's all, that's what we're, but that's where we requiring you, everyone here to write letters and to show them how important this is to you to keep it affordable.
And also a betrayal of, you know, it's like, is it yet another group of politicians that are going to betray the people that their
Right.
constituents, you know, or are they going to honor certain things that, you know?
Thank you, Polly. We're gonna.
Yeah, no,
ask-
I don't want to, sorry. Thank you very much. And
Thank
thank
you
you
very
for
much.
everything.
Thank you, Polly.
Thank you. Lisa, will you come forward and ask your first question, and then we'll get to the second question.
You skip the line.
There is a line, but there've been, but you're still on round one.
Hi, I appreciate you. I'm Lisa Jackler. I was listening over the web, and I'm incredibly impressed with everything that you guys have done. It's astonishing in its complexity. But I did want to add one thing about affordability, and I'm very reticent to say this, but this is an ugly truth. I feel, you know, I obviously have no facts, but from everything that has gone on and the way the city's behaved the whole way through with this, they to me have demonstrated that yes, they're only fiscally interested. They actually do not really regard us as a pertinent part of their affordable housing plan. And in fact, you know, the city has thousands of units going in, many of which are going to be affordable. So I see where that's coming from. I also understand as an accountant that if I were from the city council, I would be looking at the fiduciary responsibility that the city has to the rest of the constituents as to holding the assets. So these are difficulties for us. But the last thing I'd like to say is that, you know, this has been such an affordable place to live for everyone for so long. It is it's
I'm
incomparable.
sorry, Lisa, I'm going to ask you to come to a question, please.
Yeah, it's incomparable. And I'd like you guys to consider, I'm just going to say this, that there is no cheaper place to be no matter what. So if we're paying $375 a month more, regardless of whether that might be more than 30% of some people's income, but not necessarily assets, it's still going to be no more than $1,000 a month to $1,300 a month. You are not able to rent a room anywhere for that price. And affordable housing, there's a minimum 5-year waiting list.
Yep. And I think, Lisa, I'm going to stop you.
That's
We're
okay.
gonna hear
I got my point
Yeah,
in.
thank you. We're going to hear
Thank
more
you
about
very
that
much,
at-
Lisa.
at our next presentation. Okay. Any more on Zoom before we move on to the second round of questions?
There is, let's see, Josie Chappell. Capel, Josie Capel. Go ahead, Josie.
Yes, I'm sorry. I just turned this on Zoom and suddenly I had my hand up. I'm just listening.
Okay, thank you. All right, Martine, your second question, please.
I reserve the respect to just say this. Within an hour drive, there is a mobile home community where you can still get a home for $200,000, rental controlled, and it's lower than $1,000 a month. This being said, now to my question, I really appreciate it was said why it's so important that we do write letters, and that is specifically everybody knows what their assets are. So people who honestly have very little assets, you must write. And then is the question, while the current administration may be sympathetic to real estate investment, yet seen as not democratic anymore, may we have to be mindful of that at some point there will be the demand of our disclosure of assets imminent, and if so, will that be of new residents only, or is everyone at risk of that? That would be a question that cannot be answered right now, I'm certain of that, but in our secret little chambers, we may think of that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martina.
I have two questions for Karen, and they're worst case scenarios. So suppose we do manage to purchase the park and we go belly up. We'll be under the Davis-Sterling Act, and according to the proposal, the Davis-Sterling Act says that whoever buys the park that you know wants to use it for something other than a mobile home
park needs to relocate us. They need to basically buy us out. Would they buy us out at market rate for our places where they stand, or are they just buying our pieces of tin and our manufactured homes?
So under state law, if a mobile home park is closed, whoever's responsible for the closure has to mitigate the impacts of relocation on the residents. And as part of that, the statute was recently amended, and part of that mitigation requires what's called paying for those mobile homes that cannot be moved, paying the in-place value of those mobile homes. So that may differ from the fair market value, but it should be the value if it were transferred to somebody who was going to retain the mobile home in the park. So, but there would have to be appraisals.
But our pieces of tin would just have to go, and they would pay us for our pieces of tin?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, unless you could move them, but that's the problem. It's very hard to move them.
Okay, the other question is, suppose our period for dealing with the county and the ENA elapses, we don't buy the park, and they sell it to someone who wants to use it for another purpose. We are not under Davis Sterling at that point, and so do we have any kind of support and relocation bylaw?
Yeah, so it's not Davis Sterling that requires the payment of relocation benefits.
That's
and
how I read it
purchasing
in the
park.
proposal.
Yeah,
I might have
it's
read it
a
wrong.
different statute that has to do with land use of the park, and it applies to all mobile home parks if they're closing or there's going to be a change of use. So that would always apply.
Okay, thank you.
I believe it's our last question. Michelle Rivers.
Hi, yes, 8 View Ridge Drive. So I don't usually go down this alleyway. I think fair negotiations are fine, and coming to, mutually agreeable positions is the best course. However, the city has constantly disappointed us and has bullied us. So I'm wondering if we don't fight fire with fire, slap every kind of lawsuit on the city of Novato for misappropriation of funds. What have they done with our interest? How they have completely bullied us for what, 20 years, and they've lost records, they've got all kinds of problems. So what about doing something drastic like masses of lawsuits? They don't want to get into that kind of thing with us.
Thank you. Let's let Karen answer that.
Thanks, Alan. I'm going to tell you that litigation is probably not the way to solve your problems. It's very expensive. It can have a beneficial impact ultimately, but it takes a really long time to get there. So if we can solve it any other way, I think we should try to.
We don't have the time and the money.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have, Judy Perdome.
If we were to pay, Judith Perdome Park, 13 Fallen Leaf Way. If we were to meet the city's request of 26 mil, and they refuse to refund the 7 mil in the reserves, you subtract that off, they're only going to get 19 mil. So they're going to lose $1 million of what we have proposed in the first place. Think about that. Also, what was the criteria from the state at the point in time 20 plus years ago that the city obtained ownership of this property? And from what I understand, they were to maintain a affordable, low-income housing specifically for seniors.
Judy, thank you. Let's let Karen answer that. I think.
I don't know if I can completely answer that question, but it's my understanding that when the city bought the park, they bought it in, first of all, they used tax exempt bonds. So there were some criteria there with regard to maintaining it as affordable. Those bonds have been paid off now with the Bank of Marin loan. But you do still have what's called the Housing Assistance Pledge Agreement on the park as part of that financing. And that's there also because when the park was originally bought by the city, it was bought by a joint powers authority that was the city and the redevelopment agency. And the redevelopment agency pledged low and moderate income housing fund money. They didn't ever put any money in, but they pledged it. And because of that pledge, they had to restrict the park to being affordable. So it's not that there's any state requirement that it remain affordable, but the city's original financing had restrictions on it, that it be affordable.
I see.
Okay, since that existed, are they no longer under that criteria, those restrictions?
Probably not.
Judy, thank you. We're going to move on.
I have a question.
Oh, yes, but you've already asked two. So let's pick up the person behind you. And then if there's time, we'll come back to you.
Thank you. I hear what you're saying about a lawsuit being incendiary, but I really would like to know if you are open to a third-party mediator with regards to the issues of our $7 million and the appraisal. That would not be hopefully too hostile a step, but we need maybe our own a mediator for both parties. We could agree upon one. Thank you.
Yeah, mediation can be very effective if the city's interested in it as well.
All right. Judy, do you want to ask your last question?
One more online.
Okay, we'll pick it up. While you're coming to the microphone, we'll pick up the question on Zoom and then we'll come back to you.
Okay, Janet McGrath. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Janet, and let's hear what you have to ask.
Hello?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. So the with things going public, that I guess, is there going to be a coordinated approach to what we had scrambled and made a very excellent process where it was very coordinated and unified, but also very, I don't know, it really scares me what's going on behind the doors at the city. And it's bringing up a lot of the fear from when we were first blindsided. So how is this going to be, just so that things don't take a spin in the media, for example, and all that?
How is the media going to be controlled? What's the messaging that
Yes,
goes out
thank
to
you.
media is your question. Okay.
Yeah.
I think, Mary is our person there. If someone here might have a comment.
That's right. No, I think that we're going to try to wait until Mary gets back. We don't know when that's going to be. She has family issues she's dealing with. And but she's the expert on how to deal with the media, how to and when and what the tone needs to be most effective. And that's invaluable information to us. And we're very fortunate to have her on board to do that. So that's what we're going to do with the media is wait for Mary.
Judy.
Okay, so to get back to my previous comments.
Well, let's get to a
involving
question
the
quickly,
state.
please, Judy.
Is it perhaps not about time that the feet of the city be held to the fire? And maybe the state of California needs to look into some of their
Judy, I'm
policy,
sorry. Can you
procedure,
ask a question,
process.
please?
The
Please
question
ask a question.
is it not time
Thank you.
to get some information from the state?
Thank you. Question, can you answer that, Karen?
The state doesn't have a lot of oversight over cities. There is the State Department of Housing and Community Development is very interested that cities meet their housing goals. So there might be some options of working with them on that.
Martina, you were first, and then Marty, because you guys have both asked questions. So please, let's wind this up because it's almost 2 hours.
Thank you. I realize how much you have done given on ours. It's absolutely spectacular. The question I have is, since the 2012 and the 2021 property condition report, the latest at $90,000, however, they clawed back on statements that are very, very old and repeated over and over.
What's the question, Martina?
Can
please?
we, if we have interviews of residents that can update information that is not in the property condition report?
I'm sorry, we're not
can
on the
that-
property condition report.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
Can we
Yeah, but we're
lower
not.
the
I'm
price
sorry.
of the park that's
Does
suggested?
this have to,
Thank
okay, so this has to do with a counter offer. Thank you, Marty.
You mentioned you're in an exclusive negotiating agreement. When is that over?
End of the year.
December 31st.
Of this year?
Yeah.
I see. And can that be extended if you don't?
If the
That's where they
parties
get hit.
mutually agree.
I understand.
Yeah.
So it's important for us to wrap this up. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions in the room? One more question. Any on Zoom?
No.
Yeah.
Isaac Safdie, 7 Meadowview. So it appears taking legal action as a group doesn't work. How would the city feel if they got 306 individuals to sue them? And each legal action would be a class action suit. And I'd ask our legal,
Yeah, I think, I don't know how the city would respond to that.
well,
But
I'm
I
not
think,
asking really about
yeah,
that.
I
I'm
know. I
asking
think what the
we
city
can
would
make it
respond to
efficient.
if
Mhm.
306 people show up at their council meetings.
Well, no.
And
That's publicity garbage. I'm talking about having someone guide 306 class action lawsuits against the city. How much it would cost them on legal fees to defend against
Oh, it would cost a lot.
306.
They would cost a
So
lot.
that would be effective, putting feet
Yeah.
to the fire and bring them down very quickly to negotiate effectively with them and not waste our time anymore. So that's where we could effectively use some dollars to help everyone sign off on a lawsuit, because they're not going to sue each of us back individually.
Anything on Zoom?
So you guys, if you think it's a good idea,
Okay.
I'd appreciate a round of applause, loud and sustained. Standing ovation would be good also, because that's the way politicians usually respond, when they hear
Thank you.
people.
Thank you very much for your
Thanks,
comment.
Isaac.
It's,
That's great.
Interesting point. I'm sure everything that's possible is in on Karen's desk, and she's thought all about it. I will just say that she's already advised us that if we can get to an appropriate solution without without a lawsuit, we'll be much better off. So let's let that avenue play out. And your point notwithstanding. Do we have any questions on Zoom remaining?
No.
No questions. I think we're done here. Thank you all so much for your engagement.
Yes.
Thanks to these
Thank you, Ellen.
wonderful people here. Thanks to Randy Keller online. Thank you for your questions. Let's get rolling on those letters.
Thank you all.